Hello! My name is Lonijonli and welcome to Hello Creators. I got this idea recently to create a podcast and feature some interesting creators. In our second episode, I wanted to feature another one of my close friends and a brilliant creator. She is extremely talented. She is an artist, actor, and creator. She is also my best friend. Please welcome Kristen Murphey to the show.
Hi guys. Hi Lon. You're so sweet. Oh my gosh.
So, first question.
All right.
How did you first become interested in art, and when did you first start drawing?
So, I'm going to start with when did I start drawing? I've pretty much always been drawing, little doodles here and there. I was pretty introverted, the whole nine. So I always just would doodle. But that's when, around middle school, one of my youth mentors, Lori, she was like, hey, you seem to have a real knack for this. Do you think you might want to consider picking up painting or something like that? And I was like, no, I'm actually never going to do that, ever. But it settled in me and, kept ringing in my mind. And I was like, maybe I could start painting. So it was around middle school when I first became interested, but I wasn't interested in it at all, the first half of it.
Oh, not the marshmallows, no.
Dude, seriously.
There are 3 fluffy babies.
My little monsters, my little gremlins, my boy.
I'm going to zip up this bag and they can't get to the marshmallows that way. Okay.
There we go. Hush,
so that is really cool that you ended up in art even though initially you were like, nah, I'm good.
I really didn't have any hobbies or anything at the time, so I was like, well, I gotta have something that's interesting or I'm never gonna make friends. My best friend right now is my cat, Alex. And I was like, you know what, that's pretty sad, actually. Maybe I should talk about hobby. Maybe it'll get me some friends. But I did get into the theater, and I would just draw in the back, and I didn't talk to anybody until I started meeting you guys, Victoria and Beck. I was like, okay, I could put the art to the side. I have something to do now.
And then we were like, art? You can do art? Hold on. Show us your art.
Well, all 4 of you are kind of artsy anyway with crafting or drawing or theater. So it's kind of funny that God placed that interest in each one of us, and we just happened to meet at the same time pretty much.
God will put your crew together.
Yep.
How many years have you been an artist?
Okay, so it's been pretty inconsistent, honestly. I'm going to say 10 to 15 years, but I would have, a year and a half break where I really didn't pick up a pencil or, anything like that. So I can't say that collectively I've been drawing or painting or anything like that for most or all of my life, just because I'll kind of have seasons where I pick it up and put it down. But I'm going to say about 10 to 15.
That's a good number.
Yeah. Somewhere in there. I don't know where the line gets drawn when you look at schematics.
What has been your favorite creation so far?
This is my favorite question, mind you, and the answer has nothing to do with my art itself, actually. But I did this piece once, and it took me about 3 days to get it all together. It was this compilation of a bunch of Disney characters from the 90s. And, little hidden Mickeys kind of everywhere.
I know exactly which piece you're talking about.
Cool. Okay, I couldn't find it. I have no idea where it's at. I'm sure I have a digital copy of it somewhere, but it had nothing to do with the piece itself. It was my masterpiece at the time. But I was working with Ignite Children's Performing Arts, and I was working with a bunch of youth, a bunch of our kids. And I noticed a lot of them, especially because we're in theater, a lot of them are girls, but just pretty much all of them. I was kind of running into this consistent issue of self-image, worthlessness, all across the board. So one day before we started rehearsals, I was like, hey, let's just sit down. Let's kind of, have a little Bible study, go get into the Word a little bit. But I showed them, hey, before we start, I'm going to show you this piece of art that I did. I gave them a full rundown. It took me 3 days to do this. I've never done a piece anything like this, and here's how much time it took me and the energy and all this. And then I handed them a big fat Sharpie. And I said, I handed it to each of them. I said, I want you to mark on it. And none of them would. And I was telling them, I want you to mark on it. They were like, no, why? I'm like, I'll tell you why. And none of them would. And I said, every single time that you put yourself down, you were telling God that his masterpiece, you did it wrong. My favorite verse is Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's handiwork or his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. That is incredible that out of the mountains, out of the oceans, out of the flowers, everything he created, he chose us as the masterpiece. He that is my handiwork. That is my pride and my joy. And for us to look in the mirror and say, I hate this about myself. I'm so ugly. And man, God did me wrong. I was like, no, absolutely not. So a lot of them came up to me afterwards. They were like, that really it gave me a visual of something and I just put 3 days into that. He knitted you in your mother's womb and took such precious time and care into you and said, that is my beloved. So that piece has a lot of sentimental value for me. Again, nothing to do with what I actually put down on a paper, but what God was able to do with it afterwards.
That is beautiful.
Thank you. I loved being with those kids, and I got to work with them a whole bunch, and I really miss being kind of plugged into that kind of aspect. So being with For His Glory now, I'm kind of hoping that opens up some new branches and things like that so that art can be used as a way to glorify God in all things.
Oh, 100%. Totally agree.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite piece that showcases your abilities?
I'm going to say my favorite thing about creating things is taking someone else's idea and getting all the nitty-gritty details that's in your head and then putting it onto paper. And my favorite compliment that I've received is, oh my gosh, that's exactly what was in my head. So all of the t-shirts that we've done with For His Glory Productions, I've, went to Ross or to Emily or whoever's the director when they've come to me and asked hey, will you do the promotional pieces, to take the idea of the entire show and put it into one visual and to have that be the thing that draws people in with just one image. You have to capture someone's attention in 7 seconds. So okay, I have to, in 7 seconds, tell them a whole story without revealing any details. So I love doing the show t-shirts a whole bunch because again, I get to your album piece. I'm hey, what kind of elements do you want? Which, mind you, I feel bad about yours because I'm I hate
no,
it.
It's beautiful.
But I'm
it's
I
so
need to work
pretty.
on backgrounds, and I love that I was able to push past it. I'll talk about it later. Actually, it's in one of my other answers. But taking those visuals and plugging it into one design piece, that's my favorite thing to do.
It's beautiful. Girl, you have never done a bad art piece.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't.
You're cute. You're sweet.
What is your favorite medium to use?
I mean, I like the classic, paint and pencil, but recently I've been a bit more into digital work. I think it's a great platform for a lot of artists to get involved with, whether you're beginner or professional, because it's a one-time purchase. You get an iPad or whatever digital device can hold a program, get something like Procreate, and after that's that expense, you're done. You just get to create art. There's no going to Michael's to get more paint or more pencils or all this. So I think it's a great affordable method for people, but also it has a lot of there's a lot of ways that you can, digital transfer. You can put it on t-shirts, you can make stickers, you can do all these things that you may not really be able to fully accomplish with just traditional art.
Yeah.
But it still holds a nice little soft spot. I have a little heart for it, It's where I think most people start is just pencil and paper. It's the cheapest way just to kind of get started.
Oh, yeah.
So that's probably, again, digital for me right now.
It works though. It's really easy to share your artwork that way as well. You don't have to try to take a picture of it or scan it into.
And then editing and all that. You get to figure out your saturation and where you need it to be for your piece. I'm hey, here is this. Change the saturation to what you like. But some people, they want something a bit more dull, and in 1 second you can change the whole piece around.
Oh yeah, that's true. That probably does save a lot of time too.
Yep.
What themes or concepts are you exploring in your current creations?
So right now, I'm kind of in a block. And I'm okay, I'm at this point that I need to kind of level up. And I really need to work on my expansion and growth as an artist, especially backgrounds. I love that I got your piece done. But I would love to revisit it later on, like after I've, developed that skill. Like, beginning artists, they got to accomplish eyes and hands and all that. And once you get that, then it's okay, uh, the next step and the next step. And right now mine is mainly just spending more time on a piece. I think most times I spend maybe 5 to 7 hours on a singular piece, but most brilliant work takes, 10 to 40 to 60 hours to make a really monumental piece. I'm trying to push past my current level. So that's where I'm trying to explore my next steps, I would say.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I don't want to just stay consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you personally overcome creative blocks?
I love this question too, by the way. I watch a lot of like other artists, whether they're, around the same level as me or a little step above or below, depending on where I'm at season wise. But, watching them trying new styles out, there's so many to choose from all across, animation to, comic books to, all this. Or just simplifying it. I maybe, trying to, like I said before, you got to make a brilliant piece every single time. Actually, how about you step back and just simplify it? Do a 30-minute piece and just have some fun and, give yourself a break and some grace in it all. Or just drawing with somebody. Like, they don't have to be an artist like you, just somebody to draw with. And maybe they're like, oh man, I hate that this looks like that. And, oh, let me show you how to do this real quick. It's super simple. Or going back and forth, like getting someone else that's a little step above you and be like, hey, I just want to draw with somebody. So I like to do that when overcoming blocks, but mostly it's just finding time.
Hey, this world is crazy busy, man. What personal qualities or traits do you believe have been essential to your success in art?
So you can spend thousands of hours and become an artist at a professional level and never be successful. So I think knowing your goal and where you want art to be in your future, understanding its role in your life is what will equate to the success that it brings. Because you can master every single ability and never be successful. It's how you present it, how you emote with it. There's emotional pieces that speak to people, but that's the only thing that artist really has. There's so many different ways to look at success in the art, but I think knowing your goal and where you want to be at, where does art stand in my life? Is it right beside me, or is it off in a box to be picked up another day? So I think knowing where it stands in your life. I'm not a professional artist, but
Girl, you do art for a theater that constantly goes to the Dove Awards, and then you create art as an amazing artist. Like, you just did my band's artwork for our first album ever. Like, girl, you are a professional.
Yes, but I'm not when I say professional, I mean more like an animator or a comic book artist, like someone who does this as their primary sole piece of work. So I promise I'm not trying to degrade myself. I will, obviously, but still. I think it's just, again, for me, it's not my primary focus when it comes to creation. There's so many other elements that are involved. And I just kind of let God tell me when it's important. Because sometimes it's really important in my life, and other times it's second, third, 15th place. It just kind of depends on where you're at right now. Yes. Oh, the jinx of bubbles.
How do you approach practicing your craft? Do you have any techniques or routines that help?
So this is I did an art class one time, and I was like, okay, the first 5, 10, 20 minutes, it's gonna be ugly. And let it be ugly. Like babies that have really big ears, and it just needs time to grow into them. Just give it some time. It'll be fine. But, start small, get super, super messy with it. Only it makes sense to you. Taking notes down on your theater notes. It's I don't know, it's bench over on the left side.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that means, but no one else does. So just get the ideas down, build it as you go, set a foundation, and then start putting time into it.
Mm-hmm.
Get the rough idea, get all the shapes and like the color scheme and all this, set it up, and then you can start, okay, and now think.
Mm-hmm.
I'll actually even blur my eyes, and just go for it.
Yeah.
I know that's really odd, but when I take away the perfection out of especially that first little bit, then I'm not so worried in the next couple steps.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when it's supposed to be beautiful. I don't know when it's supposed to be done until I'm like, okay, and I'm tired, and this is good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I start, at least. And a unique technique. Blur your eyes as you draw, I guess.
Hey, I mean, it's a technique.
May not be the best. Don't do it. Don't hurt your eyeballs.
What has been your most memorable performance?
So I love doing theater, and I love, acting, but also just doing, again, the artwork for it. I remember one time I was asked by a director, like, hey, we're doing an Easter show. Here are the ideas, and I need you to create something. And normally I'm like, got it. I know exactly who, like, this person is. I know what they want. I drew it, and she was like, it's not it. I'm like, okay, what changes? And she told me the changes, and I did it. She was like, man, it's still not it. I was like, really? Okay, like, give me more detail. So we kept doing this thing until finally she was like, hey, I hate to do this to you, but we went a different route. We just went with photography for the promo. And I was like, well, dang, because I finally got to this piece that I was so proud of. I was like, you know what? I just felt called. I kept going back to this piece in my drafts. I was like, there's something special about this. And several months, maybe even a year later, Ross, with the current theater that we're at, with For His Glory, they were starting up. And they're starting with an Easter show. And I was like, okay, so I auditioned, we get in, and he's like, hey, I need an art piece for this thing, for like the promotions. I'm like, okay. He gives me the ideas, and it's checkboxing everything that happened with that. And I was like, okay, and I showed him the piece. He was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. So our current, like, redeemed art piece with the hands and the chains breaking and the silver coins falling, and then there's God with the crown of thorns and the roses. The roses have significance to sacrificing for a friend, and that's exactly what Christ did. So all of these different elements, he was like, this is perfect, because it encapsulated the show that we were about to perform. So God was like, hey, it's one of those, it's not you're not ready for it yet. It's a not yet moment. So he held on to it for me for a good little bit.
It was a good thing that you had already planted, though, or you wouldn't have been able to harvest.
We were on a crunch and a deadline, so you're exactly right. Because we just going, and finally he was like, oh gosh, I need a art piece. I was like, you need it right now? He was like, pretty much, yeah. I was like, oh my God, I have this. He was like, it's perfect. So God knew.
Mm-hmm. He did, because that's a beautiful art piece.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that piece.
And it's two hands, girl. That hands are hard.
Hands are difficult, but I enjoy that one because, again, a lot of people think that too the nails went into his palm, but I actually did it accurately where it was in his wrist, too. So I got to like showcase that it was Jesus reaching down, and you see that he's already paid the cost, and the chains are already breaking on the other person. They're scarred and they're marred, but they get to reach out still and get clean by him.
That is beautiful.
Thank you, man.
And what or who are some of your inspirations?
I mean, kind of the obvious answer is look at creation itself. Like, God is so cool. Like, he made literally everything. And again, still considers us his pride and his joy. But I'd say outside of that, animation. Hey, little boy. No. I'd say animation has really been the biggest inspiration. Ghibli, Disney, a lot of DC projects. My favorite like DC artist is a guy named Steven Sajik. His style, I really try to emulate a bunch. He's got some beautiful pieces of art. It's kind of a little grungy, but clean. I don't know how else to describe it.
I'm gonna have to look him up.
I have some books. I got it.
Okay. If you could collaborate with any artist or actor,
okay,
past or present, who would it be and why?
So, Bruce Timm is my answer. He did Batman the Animated Series and all of like the DC animated universe. My favorite is Justice League Unlimited, and it kind of ended with a bunch of cliffhangers. So I would love to do some type of collaboration with that team and kind of give it the resolve, whether it's a comic book, or I would learn animation like that if I could be part of that project again. Like, I would love to do something like that, but I would love to do like a comic book with like my favorite characters, because I'm a DC nerd all the way.
Oh yeah, and her videos on TikTok of her art and animation aren't up to like 40K views. I don't whatever.
No. I do like those. I spend a lot less time on those. Those are like, that's that first stage of art too. I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna get something out there. I need to be way more consistent with those, honestly. But yeah, Bruce Timm, I'd love to work. Plus, he has a lot of Christian elements too in the shows. If you really look, you can find it a bunch. So I love that he kind of has that perspective.
And is Nightcrawler one of the characters that he draws a lot? Because I know that character.
He's a really cool character. He's with Marvel.
My brain.
Hey, I'm also wearing the X-Men necklace
that's
not helping you at all when I'm talking about my love for DC.
Hey, I am a nerd. I know the difference between DC and Marvel. Don't kill me.
Hey, but there's a similar character called Blue Devil.
Yeah.
So like they look almost identical in some like ways too. So plus he's blue.
What are some of the elements that you were talking about that this artist does in his animation?
So at one point there's a time travel episode, and without revealing too much, these characters, they're going to the beginning of time, and the guy's like, this is forbidden to see, and you see a hand forming and creating. So he acknowledges there's a one creator in that moment as you see the planets and the galaxies in the palm of this creator's hand as it fades away into black. Ooh. Because again, they switch over to time. And an atheist character, she starts getting she starts questioning the other characters, like Wonder Woman, who believes in a pantheon. And she's like, do you believe when you cry upon your gods that you gain strength? She's like, it's the one thing that gives me strength is my belief. And the atheist character, she's like, that's really comforting, I guess, but my world doesn't believe in that. And she starts questioning other believers. They never say it's God, but it's Superman, and that's canonical, that he believes in a one power. And a character passes, and as he's passing, he asks her, is my soul waiting for me? And she starts bawling and says, yes, it is. And later at his funeral, she goes, I don't understand why he was so peaceful in his last moments. And a character says that it's faith. He had faith. So there's a lot of great little elements in that show. It's soft and it can be subtle, but if you know, you know.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to like speak what you believe in, but without it's doing it in an artistic, very poetic way.
And it's not like, hey, this is about Jesus, this is about God, or this is about whatever agenda that person is trying to push, whether we deem it good or bad. It's being nice and gentle. It can be up for interpretation if you really really stretch the line thin. But I like that you can kind of tell it's a little obvious. So I have major respect for somebody who everyone appreciates his art despite Christianity not being a favorite thing to talk about.
That is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share the story of your autistic... Not autistic. Hold on.
You need to leave that in there. I beg you.
Artistic. And the other A word.
Yes, I can share my story of my artistic journey. I have had that happen before, by the way, too. But... it really does come in waves. It leaves and it comes in and out of season. But also, I've used my art for the glory of God, but I've also sinned with it. So there's good and bad with that, because with creation, you have a pencil in your hand. You can create whatever you want. And with that responsibility, you have temptation that can rise with that. Like, hey, you know, you kind of feel like God a little bit, like, oh, I can create whatever I want. So you got to have some humility too, and some respect for what you're doing, because again, like I said, I've used it for evil, but I've also used it for good, and I've thrown that bad away. But I've still done it. You know, I've still marred myself. I put the Sharpie through myself by doing those actions. But again, we have a Redeemer who can oversee that. We can repent and use that same craft for something amazing. Art is relevant in all across the world, in everyday media and propaganda and all these different things. And it can be a tool for evil, but it can be a tool for glory as well. And I've seen both sides of that edged sword. So unfortunately, I've done it for both. And it's just learning where you want it to be in your life. Is it worth marring yourself for a moment of, you know, whatever? It's not. You know, but our God is good, and he's able to take nothing and make it something.
That is very true.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very beautiful way that I've said beautiful like 3 times.
Hey,
anyway,
you're so beautiful.
But I really like the poetic
There you go. Different adjective.
The way that you said that. It's a really good way of being able to visualize too, because it's like we've all sinned, we've all chosen to do bad things with the gifts that we've been given.
Yeah,
we've all done it. If you're saying you haven't, you're just lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us have done good with stuff that we've been given as well, and it's just finding God in that, and then choosing to do the good thing, because it's all a choice.
Yeah,
it really is. And you've got to get to the point in your life where you decide to choose the better thing is going to be better for you in the long run.
Yeah. And people will say, like, oh, it's just characters, or it's just this piece of art. Yeah, but what are you doing with it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like watching a TV show and it's animated, but what's the rating on it, and how is the rating being used?
Mm-hmm. So
you kind of have to see where you're at with your relationship with Christ, or your relationship just with yourself, if that's not part of your equation.
Yeah.
Is it benefiting you? How is it affecting your everyday life? Is it consuming you? Because it consumed me. I spent hours upon hours pouring into this sinful part of what could be good, and justified it with, oh, well, it's just drawings. But it was marring me every single time, until I finally said, Lord, I repent, and I will no longer do this. And I, deleted the files. Any ones that I've found that are traditional, I've, tossed or gotten rid of.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge conviction in my life, but I love that the Lord can use something that could be used for evil, and instead used it for something that can be glorifying to him, hopefully. I think that he's permitted me to be a vessel to see the outcome of that good that he allowed me to be a part of.
There was a quote that I heard recently, and it goes kind of along those lines. It said, if God truly wants you to have it, you won't have to do anything immoral to get it. Yep.
I like that. I love that, actually. Because there's so many people who are willing to pay for this, I don't know what other word, provocative is a good one, art. And I've considered it. I haven't done it, thankfully. But hey, like when you see those numbers and you see the bills coming in, it's like, man, it'd be pretty easy. Like, and it's not marring me, it's marring this other person. But is it worth their soul? Is it worth mine to give it to them and say, Lord, I'm sorry, it's just times were tough. No, it's not worth it for me.
No. And it's like, we might not get a reward here, but God's going to see that you chose to do the better thing.
Yeah.
Moving on. But that was a good topic to continue on.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up next? Oh, wait, I skipped a question.
Oh, yep, I see it. We're two away. We're two away questions.
If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, just starting out in art and acting, what would it be?
So I said this to both theater and art, that I will never do either. And 50 shows later and thousands of hours of art later, I would tell younger me, never say never. God has a great sense of humor, and he likes to giggle at us, especially when we tell him no.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a dad and like a toddler, and when they tell you no, it's like, actually, you are going to do it because, well, I have a plan for you. I have a purpose for you. Just like that verse, he created a plan for us so long ago, and he has a will for our lives and has chosen that path for us, and it's our choice whether we want to stray away or go with him. So I would tell my younger self, don't be a dummy.
Never say never.
Never say never is literally all I would do, because there's some things you probably shouldn't get into, but when it comes to the will of God and what he has in store for your life, I'm not going to tell the God of the universe no.
Yeah, you don't want to get swallowed by a whale, you know.
I don't want a Jonah incident.
What do you have coming up next? Any projects or collaborations that you're particularly excited about?
So I was talking to my husband, Michael, today about where I stand with art, because right now I have nothing planned. I have no collaborations, no projects that I'm excited about or working on. I was like, I really don't know where art stands in my life right now. I kind of have it off to the side in a dusty box. And he was like, you know what? The Lord has given you this gift and this ability. It may not be right now, but maybe to do a type of even comic or some type of piece that showcases like what's going on truly in the Bible. To show in like the Garden of Gethsemane, when not 12 men came to arrest him, 600 men came to arrest him. A whole fleet upon a fleet upon a fleet of soldiers came to arrest this one man, because he had done all these things, right? And when he says that he is I am, it doesn't say that they were like, they gasped and just took a step back. It said that they were thrown violently to the ground when he spoke. And I don't think people know that just reading the scriptures, because again, there's translation things that don't equate to English from Hebrew. Or, there's a lot of different languages that you can, pinpoint. But to actually show people, because we can't do a theater production 100% of the time and actually show that. We can't have 600 people on stage that violently fly back. But maybe I can do like an art piece like that and show the details in kind of a way that is more visual. A lot of people are visual learners. I, for one, definitely am. The story of David, reading it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but after doing a production of it, oh gosh, I visualize all of our friends and actors who are alongside me when I read, read the story again over. I know the places and I know the people, because I'm like, okay, that person, this actor played it. So I get to have that visual in my head of a person.
Yeah.
That these aren't just fairy tales, these were actual people.
Yeah.
To have something visual for people to look at, I would love to do something along that lines eventually. But it may it may be a very long process, and maybe one I would need to get some other artists to kind of collaborate with, or maybe passionate about the project. But I might start small and like a smaller, probably not the Gospels, obviously, because that's a huge story. Maybe like a smaller one that, little pieces of Genesis or, Titus, I don't know.
You could even start out with something and then get people interested in it, and then you might even get sponsors, because people would want to continue to see that as art, like The Chosen. That's crowdfunded.
Yeah. I swear, Michael and you had the same conversation with me today. That was almost verbatim what you both said today. So that may be the Lord telling me, like, never say never, never say never.
You can do it.
So that's something I'm sitting on and praying with at the moment, seeing where that may lead. But also, I go where God tells me to go, whether art is involved or it's not. So
I don't think He would have given you the talent to keep you where you are. Like, I don't think He would have done that to you.
I do agree. So I want to keep improving in my art, and especially if we're going to be showing the Bible through visual style, I'm going to need to know some backgrounds or two.
And you're really good with acting too. Like, you really get into your characters. Like, you're honestly helping me really get into my character with you.
I love acting with you because I think we have such a sisterly bond, to play sisters on stage together. It just flows so easily with you because you're also a phenomenal actress.
I don't know about it.
I know about it. I don't know what you think, but you're wrong. So I love showing, especially God's word, in a visual sense, whether it's acting, whether it's art, or just, there's so many other ways to visualize how it can be, but art is such an incredible way to go about it, whether it's art or the arts.
Mm-hmm. That's a good last line to end on.
I agree.
So thank you so much for sitting down with me and doing this interview, and I really look forward to your future endeavors.
Thank you very much, and you as well.